Hey, everybody, welcome back to Transparent Talks with God. I am your host, Henry Jackson, and I am so excited to have you all here. I'm so grateful that you all are continuing to join me on this journey as I continue to be transparent before the Lord and also become see through to y'all. Y'all already know that this is an uncomfortable journey for me, but I'm so happy that I was able to take this leap of faith and continue to follow God and, be obedient. And it's been working out really great, y'all. So, over the last 2 weeks, we've been talking about faith, right? We've been talking about walking blindly by faith and just trusting God despite everything. And then we've been talking about taking the leap of faith and actually putting our faith to the work, right? And doing what God has called for us to do. So, we're going to continue on this journey of talking about faith. And this time, I have a special guest that's going to be coming on and telling us her testimony of how she took a leap of faith and how God transformed her life when she gave him his yes. When she gave him her yes, guys. So I'm so happy that you all are here, and I pray you all learn something. I pray you all receive, and I pray you all take the leap once you hear her testimony because it's an awesome testimony, guys. So, are y'all ready to get into it? Let's do it, y'all. Hey, everybody. So, welcome in. We have the special guest here, Karen, and she's going to take us through her testimony of how she took a leap of faith without knowing how it would look, but how God transformed her life. You ready, Karen?
Yes. So, hello everyone. I am Karen. The way it all started was I feel like God has been telling me a few times before to go ahead and take the leap of faith and to move to Florida. But of course, a lot of times we have that stubbornness within us that we're just like, no. And in other words, that little bit of fear that holds us back from something. And, God is always trying to have us eliminate that fear, because if we continue to have that kind of fear within us, then that hinders us from the blessings that He has in store for us. So I started noticing that after I ended up taking my leap of faith, and I was just like, wow, Karen, if you would have done this sooner, you probably would have been a lot farther. But of course, those are just things that pop up in our mind, because God always knows when is the time that we're actually going to listen to Him.
Yeah.
So it all started. I was working in a Sprint store, and this new girl came down, and me and her, we just became best friends. And she was from Florida, and she was always talking about Florida this, Florida that. And I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. And I was like, well, I always think of Florida like as a vacation place. So it wasn't something that I wanted to do right off the back, but it was something that started to like burn within me to go, and it just intrigued me. And I was thinking about moving when she ended up moving back to take care of her mom for a little bit. And I decided not to go, even though she kept on inviting me to come and stay with her until I was able to get on my feet. Didn't want to do it. And then after that, this second time, I had another friend that he was actually settled out here, but he had his own business and stuff. And he was like, listen, I have this empty house. You can go ahead and stay there. You could bring your kids and stuff. And when you get settled, you'll be able to move out. And still, I was still like, no. During these times in between, I was going through a lot of like hardships and stuff, situations with my mom, which of course that's for another story, another podcast time. And I was going through situations with my mom and with an ex-boyfriend that I had at that time and stuff. And I just felt like things weren't going right for me. And every single time things weren't going right, I was like, I'm going to move to Florida. And then things will get good for a little bit. And then I'm like, okay, maybe next time I'll move to Florida. Until this one time, I'm going to tell you about how it all started about Florida. Um, I was living in an apartment with my mom, and I was paying all the bills because my mom wasn't working. And the way I was raised up, I love my mom, but the way that I was raised up is that my mom wanted me, since I was a young mom, I had I was pregnant at 15. Um, and my mom just wanted me to live off the system. That was her thing. She was like, no, just get on welfare. You don't have to work. But I always wanted to go to school. I wanted to have my job, which I had my job at that time, and I was going to school at that time. But she was always like belittling me and everything that I did. And
Mhm.
I didn't it was something inside of me that I was just like, no, I want more for my life. I don't want to just go ahead and do this. I don't want to raise my daughter because I only had Kate at that time. I don't want to raise my daughter under these circumstances and for her to think that it's okay. I want her to live in a house. I want her to go to a good school because the area that I was around, it was Bed-Stuy and it was the hood, just being honest. And I didn't want my daughter to grow up like that or to go through the same things that I was going through at that moment. And so that's how everything happened. So then it's just crazy how God always puts pieces together or makes things hard for you to the
Yeah.
point that you just feel like you're suffocating and you just need a change. Like you need to break
Mhm.
out of that. So,
Mhm.
DJ, then after that, a while later, I gave birth to DJ, and DJ had gotten sick. He was a baby still. He had gotten sick, and now I'm gonna be very transparent about everything. So
This
he had
transparent talks
gotten
with God.
yeah. So he had he had gotten sick. It was like a domino effect. Like he had gotten sick and I took him to the doctor and they had said that he had lead poisoning in his system. They gave me some antibiotics and something for him to drink every few hours so that it could, you know, from time for time, just get out his system. So
Yeah.
I had a best friend at that time and I was telling her, I was like, listen, DJ had gotten this. And she was also supposed to be DJ's godmother. I was like, hey, he got sick because he had lead poisoning. And it was because of the house that we were living in. It was so old. It was falling apart. Like we had a huge hole in the ceiling. The floors were, it was like in a really, really bad situation, and my mom didn't want to fix it because my mom
Mhm.
was going through her own depressions about my dad leaving and stuff, and she was just battling her own demons at that time too, and I
Yeah.
understand it was hard for her at that moment also, but she was just focusing on her own hardships instead of focusing on the whole family. So I ended up telling my best friend about it, and my best friend told me, well, you need to tell their dad. And I told her, I was like, it makes no sense for me to tell their dad right now because their dad hasn't spoken to me in a few months. He hasn't even called or texted to check up on his kids. So she was like,
Mhm.
well, if you're not telling him, I'm telling him. And I was like, well, I'm not telling him, because I'm taking care of my son the way I know as a mother to take care of him. And
Yeah.
we hung up the phone. We didn't speak for a while, but then shortly after, I would say like a week or two after, DCF showed up in my house. DCF showed up. She said someone had called, and I was freaking out. I was like, why would someone call? Like my kids aren't screaming their heads off.
Yeah.
They don't come out anywhere with marks. Like why is it that someone's calling DCF on me? And I was scared because my kids were my everything. Literally the reason why I was working so much and going to school is because I wanted a better life for my kids. So I was just thinking going down the
Yeah.
line as to who would do this. And so the DCF worker came like twice during that week to check up on the house, make sure we have food in the cabinets, the kids had a place to sleep and everything. And one at one point during her visit, she looked up at the ceiling and she saw that we had a huge hole in the ceiling. And she was like, no, the
Mhm.
kids cannot live under these circumstances. This was on a Wednesday that she came, that she had told me that. She was like, you need
Mhm.
to, no, this was on a Tuesday. She told me, you have to be out by Friday. If you are not out this place by
Oh,
Friday,
wow.
I will come here and I will pick up the kids and you will have to go to court to get them back. And at that
Yeah.
point, I was like, I can't let that happen. Like, I need to do whatever I can to go ahead and keep my kids. Um, so that was going on. So I was looking for places, even though I knew it was such short time frame. I only had, not even counting Friday, I had 2 days for me to have to move out. And so I ended up at that time, like I said, I had a boyfriend that I was asking, like, hey, do you mind if we stay with you for a little bit? It wasn't, it was a toxic relationship too. And then I knew it was God telling me, Karen, don't even do that. So I was like, you know
Yeah.
what? I let that ship sail. Right. And
Mhm.
so then after that, um, I ended up telling my mom, I was like, Ma, I think I'm gonna have to go to a shelter. Like, I need to go to a shelter because I can't risk having my kids taken away. And my mom, she's always been this type of person, like, that can't happen. Like, she always wants to be right. She's like, no, that can't happen. They can't do that. I'm like, well, they're going to do it. I have to leave. I have to find a way to leave. And if I have to go to a shelter and stay there for a few months until I'm able to get the help that I need to get a stable home for me and my kids, I'm going to have to do that. Um, and of course, you know, a lot of us don't want to go to shelters because we're prideful. We don't know
Yeah.
what to expect. All we see is things that we see in the movies. And I'm
Mhm.
like, I have to go ahead and do this. So I remember going to my dad's house and telling my mom, come with me because because the the worker, the DCF worker, she made a mistake and she ended up saying that my brother was my son also. So my
Oh.
brother was going to get taken away from my mom if this didn't happen, and I needed to bring him with me. And I tried to tell the worker, like, hey, well, he's not my son, he's my brother. And she was like, well, because he's under 18, he was under 18 at that time. She was like, because he's under 18,
Mhm.
he's considered a minor, so he too have to be out the premises. If not, we're taking him away too. So I was begging my
Mhm.
mom, telling her, Ma, just come with me because they're going to take Rafi away from you too. She was being hard headed. She didn't want to listen to me. Until finally, I just packed my bags and I told my brother to come with me. And that's when my mom was basically dragged along with us. We
Mhm.
stood in my dad's house. Uh, it was like an hour away from where we were living at. Stood in my dad's house. And then because he was closer to the Bronx, and we had to go to this big building called the Path, where everyone from all over the boroughs would come and get placement in a home or a shelter. So we were there, no lie. We got there around 8 in the morning. We didn't leave till like around 2 a.m. And it was a small bus
Mhm.
that came to pick us up and they put us in the shelter. Um, while I was in the shelter, I was still looking for places. I had some money saved up so that I can afford to move somewhere. I just needed time to focus, regroup myself in order for me to not only make the next move, but make a smart one too, because I'm always a planner. I
Mhm.
always have to think ahead. Like, okay, if I make this move, what is it that's going to be affected if I make this one move?
Yes.
And I always do that a lot.
I do the same
And
thing.
yeah, like you always have to find a way to be prepared because you always need to have a plan A,
Yep.
plan B, and a plan C just in case. So I've always been like that. And so we ended up getting placed in the shelter. They booked us in. I felt like I was in jail. And they put us in like this small studio apartment that had bunk beds and stuff. And I was there for, I would say, like 2 or 3 months. During that time, I was still looking for places and stuff. And I we also had like a caseworker, and this caseworker, she ended up telling me, we can't get you approved for public assistance and you need to be on public assistance in order to stay here. I was like, well, how is it that I could get approved? She was like, well, you can't because where you work at right now, you don't qualify. I'm like, yeah, but I can't afford something right now to be stable enough to stay there. Like, I didn't tell her I had money saved, but that was like for emergencies and stuff. Even though this was an emergency, it was like, let's say if I get into a place and something happens, something, my kids need
Yeah.
something, transportation, things like that.
Mhm.
That's what that was for. And she kept telling me no, and I had to keep missing days from work to go ride the trains an hour away just to go ahead and try to reapply and then come back for them to tell me that no. Finally, I during that time, like I said, I was still looking for places and I ended up finding this small home in New Jersey. So it was a different state. I was living in New York, found a home in New Jersey, and I was like, you know what, worst case, I'm going to move to Jersey and I'm just going to make it do with whatever happens. And one point the caseworker told me, she was like, listen, I'm sorry, but you need to move. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She was like, we're kicking you out the shelter at this day because we cannot get you approved from public assistance. And it was just like, I felt like that drowning feeling. Like I felt like I was being tugged in every direction, and
Mhm.
there was no doors, there was no way out. I didn't have
Yeah.
floaties on for me to float in this
Yeah.
huge lake of drowningness. And
Mhm.
I remember crying to her and telling her, like, what can I do? Like, I can't do this. And she was like, I'm sorry, I did all I can do to help you. And I was like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna figure it out. So I went all the way to New Jersey to go look at this home. I liked it. It was enough for me, my kids, and my mom and my brother and stuff to stay in. I ended up paying the deposit and everything. And I was able to move in. The shelter was able to help me with a truck because they said, because you're moving out, we're able to go ahead and give you a free truck where you could go and move all your things. I was like, all right, no problem. So I moved to New Jersey. And when I tell you, I had to wake up at like 5 in the morning to be out the house by 6:30 to make it to school, to the kids' school on time in Brooklyn, New York, and then to go to work in Manhattan. Then I would
Wow.
get home at like 11:30, 12 o'clock to have those few hours of sleep to then wake up. And at that time, DJ was still young. So he
Mhm.
wouldn't go to sleep when you would tell him to go to sleep. I had to literally rock him for like 30, 45 minutes in order for him to go to sleep.
Mhm.
And then I would go to sleep. So I was living like that for a long time and I couldn't take it. Um, then I thought I had gotten um I thought I had a little light at the end of the tunnel. I ended up meeting someone who was a great person, so I thought at that time.
Mhm.
And he ended up moving in with me, and it was all good. He was great with the kids. He was good with me when he felt like it. Again, toxic relationship that I had again at
Yeah.
that time. And he was telling me, hey, we could go ahead and furnish the house and everything. Go ahead and use your credit cards. And I was so in love at that time. So I was like, all right, no
Yeah.
problem. I trust him. Yeah, of
Mhm.
course. Let me max out my credit cards because he said he was going to pay me back. And no lie,
Wow.
I maxed out my credit cards within like a week or two later. I found out that he was cheating on me and he just never returned home. And I was stuck with all the bills again, on top of that credit card debt.
Yeah.
And I was just like, you know what? I can't take this anymore. And I remember one of my friends from here, from Florida, he used to also work with me in the Sprint store and stuff like that. He had a family out here in Florida. He was like, Karen, we've been telling you forever, come move out here in Florida. Florida is the place where you need to be. And I was like, I don't want to. Like, my life is out here in New York. I don't think I can do it. He was like, Karen, just leave everything behind. I was like, no, I don't want to leave my friends, my life. I don't want to go ahead and pick up and leave. He was like, this is the perfect time because the kids are so young. He was like,
Mhm.
yeah, they're going to enjoy it, but just come out here. And I remember just praying about it. I remember crying, just so confused and still trying to live on my life in New Jersey / New York because I was still doing that, commute every day. And I just couldn't take it. And I remember finally when he calls me again, he was like, listen, I talked to my wife about it. You can stay out here in our apartment in Sanford. He was like, you can stay with us in our apartment and you don't have to pay us anything. But I do work, and his wife Raylene, she works too. So right now, childcare is very expensive. So if you could take care of our two girls. And Raylene was pregnant at that time too. She was having a boy. He was like, you could take care of the girls, and that would be basically your price for staying with us. I
Yeah.
was like, I'm gonna think about it. I'm gonna think about it. And like a month or so passed, and I saw I couldn't afford where I was at anymore because transportation alone, it was around $400 to $500 a month because I had to take
Wow.
multiple trains, including
Wow.
taxis, cabs. And plus my light bill, my gas, because we pay gas out there, plus the rent that we were paying, plus if I was too tired to cook, I had to go ahead and order out food, groceries, everything. It was just too much for me.
Just
And
the
I started
power.
falling behind. Yeah, like I just
Mhm.
couldn't. And I started falling behind on rent, but the landlord, he was very graceful. He was like, you know what? He was like, I'm gonna go ahead and give you some time, don't worry, and everything like that. And I was like, thank you. And I remember telling my kid's dad after months of not speaking to him, I remember telling my kid's dad, hey, I'm going to move to Florida. I mean, no, I didn't tell him that. I told him first. I was like, hey, I'm thinking about moving to Florida. And he completely blew up on me. He was like, Karen, how could you do that? Take my kids away from me and stuff. And I was like, I'm not trying to take the kids from away from you. I just want to move to Florida because it's going to be easier for me and a better life for them. And he kept throwing the card that usually baby daddies throw, which is if you can't take care of the kids, just give the kids to me. But it's not that
Mhm.
easy because even when he did see the kids, whenever he did decide to see the kids, he wouldn't even spend time with them. He'll leave them with his mom. He'll go run off. And I was like, no, I'm thinking about it. It's not set in stone yet, but it's an idea I was thinking about, and I was wanted to tell you about it.
Mhm.
And I just remember the whole idea, and it was almost as if I was getting just pictures in my head of how easy it would be in Florida, how things would just work out. But it was myself always with that fear inside of me holding me back the whole
Mhm.
time. And I'm like, I'm scared. I'm scared to start off new. I'm scared to just do everything. Like I'm scared. I don't want to do it. Until one day I woke up and I was like, you know what? I'm going to move to Florida. I'm just gonna
Mhm.
go jump that leap of
Take the
faith.
leap.
That's it. I'm just gonna do it because
Yeah.
right now I feel like I'm making my own plans out here in New York and nothing is working for me. And the last thing
Mhm.
I want is to go ahead and try to find another man and to fill that void when no one can fill that void for me and my kids, because I want my kids to be happy and I want to be happy, even if
Yeah.
it is with just me and my kids.
Yeah.
And um I remember saying to myself, there's nothing, that's it, my water has dried. I remember that repeating in
Mm.
my head, like,
That's, like,
is
deep.
yeah, like it's dried up,
Yeah.
It's like
Mhm.
you have a flower and you keep on trying to water it and it's dead. The petals already fell
Mhm.
off. Or you have this
Yeah.
little stem and it's like, okay, it's dead, but I think it's gonna still live, and you keep watering it to the
Uh-huh.
point it's drowning. All you're doing is killing it even more. So I'm
Ooh,
just
yeah.
like, yeah, so I'm like, that's it. My water dried. And I remember calling my homeboy up again. I was like, is that deal still on the table? He was like, yeah, Karen, yeah, let's go. Come on down. I'm like, all right. So I didn't have a license to drive to Florida. And I remember telling my mom, listen, I'm moving to Florida. I'm taking my kids. You could stay here until the end of the month, because that's what the landlord gave me. For now, sell everything, and you could keep all the money that you get from the stuff you sell. I don't care. I'm just taking clothes, my TV, and the kids, and that's all I'm taking. And she was like, you're crazy, why would you move all the way out there, and she was just putting bad thoughts in my head. I'm like, well, you know what, I'll never know unless I try. And hey, if things don't work
Yeah.
out, I could always come back, like,
Mhm.
with a different head on my shoulders,
Mindset.
basically.
Yeah.
I just wanted to go
Mhm.
try it out. It won't kill me. So I remember telling my close friends, like, hey guys, I'm moving to Florida. They thought I was completely insane, but they were like, you've always been a go-getter. You've always done things that we never understood, but it always worked out for you. So we know this change is going to work out for you. And they gave me many blessings and they were like, we know it's going to work out for you. Just go ahead and do your thing.
Mhm.
So they ended up helping me pack my stuff. And again, I didn't have my license. So I ended up and I wanted to drive to Florida because I wanted to take my things. I didn't I
Yeah.
had to take my things.
Yeah.
So I remember telling one of my friends, hey, I need your help. It's a huge help. It's a huge favor to ask for. If you're going to say no, it's fine. He was like, what happened, Karen? And we sort of grew up together. And he was like, what happened, Karen? And I was like, I need you to rent me a car under your name. And he was like, you crazy? I was like, please, I'm moving to Florida. I just need to go. And he was thinking about it. It was like a moment of silence. And he was like, I don't know why, but all right, I got you. And I was like, are you serious? He was like, yes, I got you. I was like, all right. So we went to the I think it was Enterprise out there too. Yeah, I think it was Enterprise. I went out there, got the car. They asked him, so you're gonna be the only one driving? He was like, yes, I'm gonna be the only one driving. So he lied, of course. And then I remember he ended up driving with me and my friends in the minivan because we rented a Honda Odyssey.
Mhm.
Rented it. We ended up driving all the way to Jersey, and we started loading up the van. And then after that, we drove back to New York to drop him and my other girls off. And it was during a winter storm, like a snowstorm,
Mhm.
like because it was December 16th of 2017. I will never forget the day. It was the
Okay.
craziest winter storm that was out there. They were all crying, please be safe, don't crash, all that stuff. And the kids were there with me, and I was like, I, I got this. God's with me. Everything's gonna be okay. And I always, just to be honest, like I always had that relationship with God. Like since I was young, always had that relationship with God, but I never had a relationship as I do now with God.
Yeah. Mhm.
Like I always, anytime I felt alone, anytime I was scared, anytime I was angry, anytime I was feeling some kind of emotion or just even being happy, nothing being wrong, I always like knew God was with me, like
Yeah.
no one was
Mhm.
ever to tell me different. And that's something that I always held with me and stuff. And I knew, like, I was like, God's got me. God's got my back. He's with me. Nothing's gonna happen.
Mhm.
So I was driving, and I never stopped to get some sleep. Nothing. Like I was just straight driving. My kids were helping me with GPS and stuff like that. They were like, "We're passing this state, Kata," and then she was telling me the state that the GPS was telling her and everything. And it was like a little road trip. They were just excited. And I remember speeding in Georgia, but I was like probably an hour away from Florida. And I would remember speeding. I was doing 90 on 70. We were supposed to be
Mhm.
70. I was doing 90. And the cops pulled me over. And she came out and she was like, "Do you know what you're doing?" And I'm like, "I'm so sorry. I'm driving from New York. I was tired. I'm close. I'm trying to head to Florida. I got my kids here. I'm just trying to get there. I'm sorry." And she was like, "If you're not doing it for yourself, do it for your kids."
Mhm.
And even though I knew what she meant, she was like, "Hey, if you're trying to kill yourself, make sure your kids stay alive." I knew what she meant, but those
Mhm.
words hit me because I felt almost as if it was like weight off my shoulders, because it's
Mhm.
like, even though I was scared myself for moving, relocating, starting a whole new life, I couldn't just think about how I felt. I had to think about my kids'
Your kids.
futures,
Mhm.
So that was just insane to me. And I was like, I apologize. She was like, be safe. And she let me go. And the crazy part is that
That's good.
what's the first thing they ask you when they pull you over? License and
License and
registration.
registration. Yep.
Never asked me for license or registration. And
Wow.
I was like a grandma on that highway. I was like, nope, I ain't getting pulled over again. And I finally, it's crazy. And it's so funny too, because while I was going through the states, it was getting hotter and hotter. And I had like sweats on and a jacket, and I'm here like taking clothing off, like, oh my goodness, I'm getting closer to Florida. It's hot. And I finally reached Florida, and the sun, it was like, because I've been to Florida before, but the sun was just like brighter. It was like
Mhm. Mhm.
brighter than I've ever seen the sun shine on me before. And I was just like, God, thank you. I've made it. I made it safely. I'm here. And then I remember pulling into the complex and I'm like, oh my goodness, it's so nice over here. I just fell in love. And I remember calling my friend to come out. His wife came out, the kids came out, and all of that happened. And I remember just settling in and just laying down and looking at the ceiling. And my mattress was on the floor because, they just had an extra spare bedroom. And my
Yeah.
mattress was on the floor, and I was just laying there on the mattress, and the kids were there, like, all happy and stuff as can be. And I was just so excited. I was like, okay, I feel like a long vacation. And it's crazy because I was staying, so I got there, I left December 16th, so I got there December 17th. And I was there and I started seeing things change, And it's crazy because in Spanish we have this saying, el muerto apesta después de una semana. That means like a dead person starts to stink after a week, you know? So
Mhm.
that's a saying of saying like, hey, everybody would invite you into their home, but after a few
Uh-huh.
days, they're already
Mhm.
counting down the days for you to leave, Like everything
Uh-huh.
bothers them. The way you breathe, the way you chew your food, the way you
Mhm.
walk, if you everything you're not doing enough or you're doing too much. Like that's how it is. So I
Yeah.
felt that and I started feeling uncomfortable. And one thing that I've noticed throughout my whole entire life is when I start feeling uncomfortable, it means that God is turning, like God is changing some things around.
Yeah.
And He starts to make me uncomfortable so I can know, okay, Karen, it's time
He
to
does the same
change.
thing with me.
See? And it is like,
Same
all
thing.
right, Karen, it's time to go ahead and change your path. That's it. It's time to go.
Yep.
That's how I know when it's time for me to leave a job all
Mhm.
the time. And I've always, even if I love the job, everything was going good or is going good, I get that knot in my stomach as if
Mhm.
I'm uncomfortable, I need to throw up. And I'm like, God, why now? And I'm like, all right. After I get all that out my system, I'm like, all right, let me go ahead and start looking to see what is it that God's trying to do for me.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so things started happening and I started seeing that my friend and his wife had a toxic relationship too. And I would pull the kids into the room with me. I remember one morning waking up and everything was turned over. Like the couches, the
Mhm.
tables, everything was turned over. And his wife was
Wow.
crying and I'm there talking to her and I'm like, what's going on? And she was telling me a lot of stuff. And my friend had left and stuff and I was like, I never knew he was like this, you know but of course, still love him dearly, but a lot of times friends, they always, you know what they want you to know, you know They-
Mhm.
you know what they want you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
I didn't know him in that level. So for me to see that, I was like, wow, that's crazy. And I started feeling that uncomfortable feeling again. And I'm like, okay, so again, it's time for me to make moves. God's like, all right, you had your fun. Now it's time
Mhm.
for you to go ahead and start making your own moves. You had your little vacation. Now it's time to get up off the
Yeah.
couch. You
Now
stack a
it's time to get to
potato.
work.
Yep. And now it's
Do
time
what I
to make
called you to
moves.
do here.
Yes, that's it.
Mhm.
And I remember looking for jobs and looking for a place and stuff. And I remember applying for the same complex where I was staying at. And I didn't have a job. I didn't have anything coming in and stuff. What I had done, because I was still getting income, I still had some money saved up and I was getting income from my previous job. And what I did was I ended up going to the complex. I was like, hey, these are my pay stubs. This company also is in Florida. I'm planning on getting a transfer out here in Florida. It was because the company I was working for before was called Extra Space Storage, and they have those out here in Florida. I was like, I'm getting a transfer. Um, I just need an apartment. And they were like, well, the waiting list isn't until they told me April. I remember April because I remember I was excited. I was like, yay, so I'm going to have my apartment around my birthday because my birthday's in April 4th. I was like, all right, no problem. So I was like, please just put me on the waiting list. I paid the deposit and everything that I needed to do. Then I'm here applying for jobs. I'm like, all right, now I really got to apply for jobs, because when I ended up contacting the company that I was working for, they ended up telling me, you weren't working here for a whole year, so I can't transfer you over. And I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, that's fine. So at this point, I was already like, my toes were in the door, not even my whole foot. My toes were in the
Mhm.
door to get an apartment,
Mhm.
but now I needed to work on being able to sustain the apartment, keep up with it. So I was
Yeah.
looking for jobs, and I finally landed a job. And it was as a financial advisor in the furniture stores. So I'm the one that calls you up for collections if you don't pay your furniture dues and stuff.
Yeah.
So I was doing that, and I remember I got that job the end of January. So I wasn't going to get a paycheck for another 3 weeks, my first paycheck. And I remember the apartment calling me the first week of February, telling me, hey, we have an apartment available for you. And if you have the funds to complete, you know, the, to sign the lease and stuff during
Mhm.
completion, you're able to go ahead and sign your lease on Valentine's Day. And I was like, okay, great. I'm excited. But deep down, I'm like, great. How am I going to do this? I don't have
Yeah.
money to go ahead and pay for it. Excuse me. And even if I did, I'm not going to be able to live, because I'm not going to have anything. And I remember one of my friends, she would always call me up and tell me, hey, how's everything going in Florida and stuff. And I told her, I was like, girl, listen, I'm in a bind right now. And when I was having this conversation with her, it wasn't to ask her for money at all. I was just telling her
Mhm.
like how stressed out I was. And I was telling her, I was like, listen, I'm in a bind right now because great, I got a job. And I remember it was during my lunch break. I was talking to her outside in the heat, while pacing back and forth. I'm like, I got my job, it's going great, but now they just called me for the apartment that I can't even pay for. I remember it was $1,300 they were asking me for. I was like, I can't pay for it because I'm not going to get paid for another 3 weeks. And even when I get paid, it's not going to be the amount of money that I need to cover for that.
Mhm.
And she was like, how much is it? And I told her, I was like, 13 something something. And she was like, all right, I'll send it to you tomorrow. I was like,
Wow.
what? She was like, I'll send it to you tomorrow. I was like, but I'm not asking it. I'm not asking for it. She's like, no, I'm gonna send it to you tomorrow, Karen. You literally moved from New York to better your life, where
Mhm.
nothing was going on in New York, to go ahead and better your life. And right now you're making this, you're taking those steps forward to go ahead
Mhm.
and have a better life, not just for yourself, but for the kids too. And you're away from everything that was in New York. There was nothing. It was just garbage in New York. And she was like, I get paid tomorrow. I'm gonna send you the money. I was like, oh my
Wow.
goodness. And she was a correctional
Thank God.
officer too. Right?
Mhm.
I remember, hey, like when I hung up the phone, I was just like, God, thank you, thank you, thank you. Like I had nothing else to say but just thank you ongoing. Like I think whoever was walking past thought I was crazy. But I was just like, thank you, God, thank you, God. And I went and literally, like, as soon as the morning hit, she sent it to me. She ain't even text me, nothing. It was deposited into my account. And I ended up calling her. I was like, listen, I got the money. I thank you so much. I'm going to pay you as soon as I get my taxes. As soon as I do my taxes, I'm going to go ahead and pay you back every single penny. And she was like, Karen, you're fine. You could take a whole year to pay me back. It's fine. Just handle your business, because I know you're still trying to get things going out there. I was like, all right, I appreciate it. Love you. Thank you. No lie, Henrinique. The very next week, I got my taxes. The very next
Wow.
week, and I paid her in full.
Wow.
I paid her in full, and I had money to go ahead and furnish my kids' rooms. I had money to go ahead and do everything I need to get
Mhm.
groceries, pots and pans, toilet paper, soap, like everything. I had the money for it.
Won't God
And
do it, okay?
Right? And it was just, like, so insane. I literally moved here December, and already by February 14th, I ended up having my apartment and my job. Now the next step was getting a car, cause I was taking taxis back and
Mhm.
forth, and I was like, "It's okay, everything's gonna work out." And I remember my first friend that tried to convince me to move out here. It's crazy how God works, because the place where I moved to, she was
Mhm.
literally 10 minutes away, living,
Wow.
like, settled for years there and stuff with her
He will
mom and
make the
stuff.
connections, okay?
Yes, it's
Mhm.
crazy. So she was like, "All right, girl, let's go for your driving lessons." So she would teach me in her little car how to drive properly, because the way I was driving on the highway was unsafe. Only God kept me in that car. And I was just
Jesus
like,
take the wheel.
yes, because I couldn't park. I couldn't nothing. Like, all I knew was how to go straight, left, and right. That's it. And like, that's it. So she was here teaching me properly how to do it, and I took my permit. No, yeah, no, I had my permit already from when I was in New York, but I just needed my license. So I ended up going to take my license. I failed the first time, like many people do. The second time I took it, I passed my license, and I was like, great, now I could get a car. And I got my car. I remember it was March 7th, I got my license. So February 14th, I got my apartment. March 7th, I got my license. I believe it was 10 days later, I ended up getting my car. And
Mhm.
that's it. I was officially settled in Florida. My kids were going to A+ schools right by the home where I was staying at. I was getting income coming in. I had my license, my car,
Your
everything,
job,
everything,
yeah.
like, everything. And I was just amazed at how short period of time God was just accelerating everything.
Yep. He
And
doesn't need
I
long to
always
restore you.
Yes, and I was just like, it's crazy, because all I had to do was just listen. Just
Mhm.
listen the first time. But then again, I'm like, you know what? God works in mysterious ways, and maybe he wanted to plant that seed when it happened the first time. So
Mhm.
then when he really wanted me to leave, I was ready, because like I said,
Yeah.
I woke up like I woke up like a dead person, back from back from the dead. When I woke up that
Like
morning, I
Lazarus.
was like, yeah, I was like, I'm moving to Florida. I
Uh-huh.
remember clearly, I was laying on my bed, sleeping, deep sleep, because I was tired from all that commute. And I woke up and I was like, I'm doing it. I'm gonna move to Florida.
Mhm.
That's it. And it was like
Mhm.
no doubt, no fear, no nothing. And literally, as soon as I made that, and I was just so grateful. I'm so, so, so grateful that how it's happened. And although I have been, like, I'm not saying that it was all uphill from here. There was
Yeah.
some trials that went along the way. But again, God, another Spanish friend that I had said it before, like, Dios aprieta pero no ahorca. Like, he'll squeeze you, but he won't choke you. Like,
Mhm.
it's things
I
where
like that.
God is always trying to stretch you in different directions to see how far you can go with your faith, how much you can handle certain pressures in life, because,
'Cause he wants to take you higher and higher and on to the
yeah,
next level. He has more for you each, level.
yeah. And how are
Mhm.
diamonds created? Diamonds are created by pressure. That's the
Yep.
only way you're able to go ahead and go through it. And now it's even better, because those people that go through the same situations you had gone through, you're able to go ahead and speak to them about
Mhm.
the own situations you have went through. And then it also gives
Mhm.
them that bit of hope. It
Yep.
always gives that. And I'm just so grateful, because now when I go through similar situations that I have gone through in the past, it's just something that I just brush off my shoulders. I'm like, whatever. I went through it before. It'll happen again.
Yep.
It's like,
Yep.
it,
He'll come through.
it's nothing now. Yeah. So, yes,
Mhm.
that's
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 really
my
good.
story.
Listen, you gotta tell a little bit of, like, what's happening now in your life just to give them, like,
Okay.
how God really just, blessed you.
Yes. So, okay. So let's go ahead and get deep now. Well, more deep. So it all started when I was in, again, and it's crazy because every single step in my life, I've always gotten that deeper love for God, and it's crazy. It's just crazy to me.
Mhm.
It almost feels surreal sometimes, like how all of this has transpired from me being where I used to be at and being under the situation I have been with my mom, my family, and everything. So I remember, um, okay. Again, everyone, it's crazy how God works, okay? Because I was working in 4C as a family advocate. So I was a caseworker, and I was also shadowing, overshadowing, I guess that's the word. 14 teachers, 7 classrooms, and then I had 8 kids in each classroom. And plus, I was working with a lot of specialists too in my job. Um, I remember at that point, I remember saying, you know what? I like being in the classroom. I like the kids. I love the kids. I love kids more than I love adults sometimes. So let me go ahead and work with
It
kids.
be like that. Look, it's
Yeah,
okay.
like they say the truth. You're able to just roll around the floor with them and that's it. They had the best time of their lives.
Mhm.
And so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and open up my own childcare center. That's my goal. That's what I want to do. So I remember I was going through these situations where I didn't really get along with my manager at that time. And it came to a point where she was started to be spiteful. She started picking on me and she ended up doing some digging into where I lived at. And she was like, oh, wait, you live in this county. You don't live in this county. So that means you have to remove your son from this child care program that's free and look
Wow.
yourself outside of the company and pay for your own child care. It came down to that, yeah. And yeah, so that happened. And I remember looking for many daycare centers like crazy. I finally found one, which was Little Blessings, which was where I used to be employed at. And it was not far from my house. It was literally 5, 6 minutes away from my house. So I was able to go home, drop him off, go to work. Um, so I remember he was there for like a few months. And then one day I felt, let me see if you can know how I felt. Like, there's times where I'm at church, right? And we're here after we're praying or we're doing praise and worship, and I have my eyes closed and I open my eyes. I feel almost as if I'm in a dream, almost like it looks almost foggy, but not in a bad way at all. It's just, I feel like I'm having a out of body experience at that time.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I remember walking in this specific day to go pick up Dallas. And I remember seeing the director mopping the floor and I felt that. And at that moment, I felt like something was different at that point. Like something was going to happen. Like it was like God was telling me, pay attention, like pay
Yeah.
attention.
Mhm.
So I looked at her and I was like, hey, are you okay? You seem down. And she was like, I'm just stressed. I'm stressed out. There's so much work here to be done. And I'm looking for an assistant director. I was like, whoa, really? She was like, yeah. I was like, okay, do you know how much you guys are paying? And she was like, no, I don't know at the moment, but I'm going to post it up once I get more detail, more information on it. And I'll let you know. I was like, all right. And the next day, she ended up telling me, hey, I don't know how much you're getting paid at your job, but I'm getting paid. No, she was like, I don't know how much you're getting paid at your job, but they're trying to pay $12 an hour. And I was like, well, right now I'm getting paid a little bit more than that, and I don't want to go down to $12 an
Mhm.
hour. So that's something that I'm going to really have to talk to God about for a long time
Uh-huh.
until I convince until he convinces me to make
Mhm.
that leap, okay? Because
Mhm.
that's a big leap. All right. So she laughed or whatever, and I was like, all right. And I remember it kept on like burning in me. It was like God was arguing with me at that time. Like, Karen, just think about it and stuff. Everything's gonna be okay. I got you. And I was like, but I can't with $12 an hour. God, you see my bills? I can't live off of $12 an hour. I do that and stuff. And it's crazy,
Lucky that you could.
right? And I remember during those times, you know how the devil likes to creep in, I ended up getting my little 49-cent raise at my job in the midst of all this. Got my little 49-cent raise, and I
Mhm.
was like, whoop, whoop, 49 cents, you know? So I was getting paid $16.49 basically where I was at, you know? And I remember talking to LJ in the garage, and I'm like, babe, should I do it? Should I not? And he was like, well, let's go ahead and let's get our finances together. Let's go ahead and see what's going on. So we ended up putting it together, and he was like, how much you spend on gas right now driving from Deltona all the way to Orange County? And I was like, all right, I spend about $80 a week. He was like, all right, well, most of your paycheck is going on there. So technically, you're getting paid around $12, $13 an hour anyways, and you're spending more time driving. I was like, okay, you know what? All right, God, you won. Let me go ahead and do this. So I ended up, I spoke to her. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. And this was a Catholic organization. They had like quotes of God everywhere. And I'm like, God, if there aren't signs, literally, physically, I don't know what else to say. I
Mhm.
remember there was this sign that she had in her office that it said, it was just, I need to take a picture next time I go visit. It was like, the Lord removes your fears, the Lord gives you strength, the Lord, everything, like going down the line. It was like a list of everything that God does. And then I remember on the computer screen, it was the verse of, that song from Maverick City, the like eagles, wings shall soar.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. You shall mount up on wings like eagles. Uh,
Yes. And
yeah. Shall walk and not be weary or faint. One
yes,
of them. Yeah. I know what you're talking
yes,
about though.
yes. Wait on the Lord. That's the name of the song, but the
Uh-huh.
lyrics was on the computer screen.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just like, I'm getting chills right now. And I'm just like, okay, God. Okay, God. And this was during my interview, and I'm like, I'm here tearing up inside. Well, inside, outside, I was tearing up regardless. There was tears coming out, and I'm like, but God, I'm still scared about this $12 an hour thing. And, but I went with it, and I was like, you know what? It's fine. The environment was so welcoming. It was so peaceful. I was surrounded by great people. I was in the same daycare as my son. I was still God was still answering my prayers from before. When I said I wanted to open up my own daycare center, he was now putting me in it to get the
Yeah.
experience.
Mhm. Mhm.
And he was like, and so that was my position. I was an assistant director. Now, again, how God works. I remember, I would say a year prior, I had gotten arrested, right? I had gotten arrested because in So I moved down here 2017. The year after, in December, I had gotten into a really bad car accident. Like my whole neck was burnt up and stuff because the
Mhm.
airbags deployed and it burned up my skin. And
Uh-huh.
the front of my car completely got like hit and thrown on the other side of the street and everything like that. It was like a really bad accident. I had to have like a neck brace on. It was hard for me to like walk and stuff. Like I was limping and stuff. And at that time I was working in the dealership and stuff. And I remember I was in so much pain. I had to do a closing shift that time. I was in so much pain, and I was asking everybody in the dealership, guys, please, does anyone has some kind of pain medicine? I need something, because I like at that point I was able to walk, but it
Mhm.
was these pains that came out of nowhere where it was hard for me to get up and walk properly. Like for example, my whole left side would be stiff to where I can't even bend my knees, and sharp pains in my back and everything.
Mhm.
And I was like, guys, do you guys have any medicine and stuff? And one of the girls that I knew, she was like, hey, I have these two. No, I think she gave me like 3 or 4 pills. She was like, I have these painkillers and stuff. They'll be good for you. And I was like, thank you. Um, Me being dumb, that's the easiest way to say it. I didn't even ask what it was. I didn't take it, but I didn't ask what it was. And then I remember the guy, there was because I was in the internet room, and this older guy, his name was Bob. He turns around and he was like, don't take that stuff. And he was like 80 years old. He turned around, he's like, don't take that stuff. I got Tylenol. And I'm like, okay, no problem, Bob. Give me your Tylenol. And I took Tylenol, and I still couldn't take the pain because Tylenol don't work fast enough. And I told the managers, I was like, hey guys, I can't take it. I need to go home.
Mhm.
So I was driven home and stuff like that. But those pills that the girl had given me were still in my purse because I didn't throw it out.
Mhm.
It wasn't
Mhm.
nothing. At that point I wasn't thinking about anything, and stuff.
Yeah.
I was just like, I'm in pain. Bob gave me Tylenol, put these in my purse and stuff. Because once he said, hey, don't take that stuff, I put it in my purse, and I wasn't
Mhm.
thinking anything of it. So fast forward to February. So this happened, I would say, yeah, it was in February. It happened that I was arrested. I remember doing a long shift again. I pulled up to my apartment, and my mom was arguing with me because she said she wanted me to pick up my brother. I was like, I'm tired. I don't want to go back out. Can I just call him a cab? Or, he got paid today. Can
Yeah.
he just go get a cab? And she was like, no, and arguing with me like crazy. I was like, all right, fine. I went to go pick him up at his job. I'm calling him, went inside. He never went to work that day. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay. So I'm calling him, and he's like, hey, I'm in my girlfriend's house. I'm like, you were supposed to be at work. He's like, well,
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm here. Can you come pick me up? When I tell you, this was the most hood place I've ever been to in Sanford. Okay. I was like, what is this? Like, I, I never saw this place before. It was hidden under
Uh-huh.
trees. It was like behind
Oh,
garbage.
wow.
I was like, what is this? So I'm here
Uh-huh.
like a tourist, like creeping up slowly around the corners, looking to see, making sure I don't get shot and stuff, because I didn't know this place, and it was late. It was really late. And
Mhm.
also because my brother did, because it was a 24/7 McDonald's. So, it was like 11, 12 o'clock. I was here looking. There was this cop that rolled up, and I was going to roll down my windows to ask him for directions because my brother gave me directions that wasn't even to an actual house. And I was
Mhm.
like, you know what, Karen, whatever, because it was a big van, and I got scared anyways of these police officers. So I was like, whatever, let me just keep looking. I remember I kept driving, and I stopped at the stop sign, and I was on the phone with LJ. And I remember the police, I'm like, I have a feeling like they're going to stop me. LJ was like, no, they're not. I was like, yes, I have a feeling. And then I see from my rear view, I see them do a U-turn. And I'm like, all right, let me just go around the block because I'm still trying to get my brother. I go, I
Mhm.
make a right, I make another right. The cops are still behind me. They turn on their lights. I had to stop. And they said, hey, you ran a stop sign. I was like, sir, I didn't run a stop sign. I stopped at the stop sign. That's when I saw you do a U-turn. And
Mhm.
then I went. I never ran the
Mhm.
stop sign.
Mhm.
Yes, you did, ma'am. And he was like, and what are you doing here? And I was like, well, I'm here to pick up my little brother. I'm looking for my little brother. We have to search your vehicle. I didn't do anything wrong,
Mhm.
sir. Please get out the
Yeah.
vehicle. And he placed me in his police car, police truck, van, whatever it was.
Mhm.
And when he placed me there, I'm like, I think I'm getting arrested. And come to find out, they found the purse that had the
Mm.
pills. And those pills
Wow.
weren't the kind of pills that And mind you, these
Yeah,
pills were
they were.
dusty with lint, dented up and everything. They were like, "What are these?
Mhm.
I was like, "I don't know." And I told them the whole situation that I had told you. I was like,
Yeah.
"Listen, I got into a car accident. My friend gave me these pills. I never took them. I put them in my purse. I ended up getting Tylenol from this dude named Bob." Like, I'm like, I don't know what these pills
Yeah.
are." And he was like, "Well, they were like hydrocox cox
Codeine or
hydro
something?
something,
Yeah.
hydrocodone. I don't know. It was some crazy
Yeah.
stuff." And I was like, "I
Huh.
didn't know." But of course, cops will be cops. They won't believe anybody. So they arrested me. So that was that whole situation, right?
Mhm.
And I had those charges on my file. I had to go to, and all during this time, I've recently found out I was pregnant with Dallas. So I had to
Mhm.
go through to my probation officer once a week. I had to go to community service. I had to complete 50 hours of community service. I had to go to narcotic and AA, Alcoholics Anonymous
Wow.
classes. I
Mhm.
had to do everything under the sun because of because of having that stuff. But
Mhm.
anyways, fast forwarding to my job situation, of me getting the interview and stuff like that and little blessings. I was like, yeah, I'm taking the job. She wanted me, everything. So it came up in my record that I was arrested before. And she was like, hey, it shows up that you were arrested for these charges. What was it that happened? I was like, I'm ashamed, but this is what happened. And I told her the whole story. And she was
Yeah.
like, that's fine. God always forgives, just write a letter to the pastor of the church. Just write a letter and tell him everything that you just told me in the letter so that they
Mhm.
could still continue on with the hiring process.
Mhm.
I was out of work for 3 weeks waiting for an answer from them because I already gave my 2 weeks. That's it. I gave my job, I gave 4C a week. I didn't even give them 2 weeks. I was out of work for 3 whole weeks. And LJ was like, do you think they're gonna call you back? And I was like, you know what's crazy? I know they're gonna call me back. No matter what. Like, I have that
Your
feeling
faith.
that God is just telling me
Mhm.
they're gonna call you. Don't even stress about it. And I had such peace in me. Like, I wasn't even worried. Even during those 3 weeks off, one of my old friends from when I was still living out here in Florida, but one of my old
Mhm.
friends called me saying, hey, we're looking for people to work in this call center. They're paying this amount of money, higher than what they were going to pay me in Little Blessings. He was like, you can make your own schedule and stuff. You'll get out early if you want to, whatever. And I was like, no, it's okay. I turned it down. I was like, no, it's fine. I have something in the works right now.
Mhm.
And I start I left my job at 4C. It was October 20th, around there, or a little bit earlier. I didn't start working till November 8th of that same year. And she called me back. She was like, hey, you can start tomorrow, everything. Like nothing. Like nothing. They completely didn't
Mhm.
care about my record. They didn't care about anything at all. I ended up going, and the job was amazing. Then, again, how God works, I got this eagerness, this burning sensation of wanting to complete all of my classes, my 45-hour classes. Also about needing to complete my staff credential, my director's credential.
Mhm.
And my director was like, but why do you need all that stuff? Why do you need it? Like, you're fine where you at right now. You don't need none of this stuff. And I was like, no, I feel like I need it for something. Like, I feel like God is pressuring me to do it. She was like, yeah, but I
Mhm.
don't think you need it. Now, I believe everyone has a good heart, you know, but sometimes the devil likes to use people in certain ways too, in ways that they don't even know that they're being used in.
Yeah. Mhm.
And it was like she was trying to talk me out of that. And I was like, no, I'm still going to do it. Mind you, when I was in 4C, all of my friends around me were getting their degrees also. and I already had enrolled in my master's degree, and I was taking my classes also. And God spoke to me to my master's degree when I was cleaning up. I was in my closet and God told me, and I was like, God, how am I going to do this? And he was like, the same way you did it before. Now, what he meant by that was, I remember my kids were in diapers crying next to me while I was on my computer till like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning to finish up some modules that I needed to complete that were due the next day, all while me having to
Mhm.
work the next morning to then go to school after. So I was like,
Mhm.
all right, God, if you said it, I'm going to do it. So I was already enrolled in school. So I finished my 45-hour classes, and now it was time to get my staff credential. I hit this hump where my staff credential was like, no, you need at least 3 credits in the education field in order for you to get your staff credential and then get your director's credential. I called up my school and I was like, guys, I just want to know how many credits I have. Oh, you have 9 credits. If I never listened to God, the time that I listened to him to enroll and do my classes, I would have never had the credits needed in order for me to go ahead and apply for the staff credential
Yeah.
to
Mhm.
then get my director's credential. All in the midst of that, again, like when God works for us, he's not only working for us, he's also okay. God is over the whole world, obviously. It's almost like he's doing chess. As he's moving us, he's moving other
Mhm.
people along the way to go
Yep.
ahead and fit the whole entire
Yep.
thing for us to win.
And all the puzzle pieces together.
Yeah, everything. He's
Mhm.
putting everything together. So while he's working with me, he's also working with someone else at the same
Mhm.
time that eventually we're going to go ahead and need each other.
Yep.
Look at this. When I got my director's credential,
Mhm.
my director found out she was pregnant and had to leave for maternity leave. And in order for her to leave for maternity leave, she needed to have someone in place that had a director's credential. She
Wow.
was never able to leave unless I had my director's credential.
Wow.
So, also
He
in the midst,
he knows what he's
yeah,
doing.
yes.
Yeah.
Also in the midst of that, mind you, I was still here getting paid my $12 an hour, still hopping and skipping along, happy as I can be. And 2 months later, the business manager came up and he was like, hey, we're giving you a raise. He gave me a raise to 1650, right at where I was when I left.
Come on. Look at God.
Girl, I was there in tears. I was
Wow.
like, God, this is so much. Like, God, this is so much for me right now. I'm not trying to deny it, but God, thank you. Like, everything was just perfect. And it was just insane. And along all of that, I ended up finishing my master's with tears in my eyes, but I finished my master's degree. And when I finished my master's degree, um Pastor Lakita Anderson, Lady Z, she
Lady
ended up
Z.
calling me Lady Z, right? AKA Auntie Kita. She ended up calling me. I believe it was that Sunday. Yeah, it was that Sunday because something was happening that Sunday that they were all together. She called me that Sunday. Mind you, I graduated on Friday. No, I graduated on Saturday, but I was driving to Tampa on Friday. Again, how God puts all the pieces together in a way where everything works out for everyone,
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
His perfect will. So I remember I invited Auntie Kita and Uncle Wendell to my graduation, and Auntie Kita and Uncle Wendell was like, "Oh, we're sorry. We wish we could be there, but we can't because we have to go to Jackson's graduation that same day." I was like, "All right, no problem." Again, how God works. I just keep saying it. It's crazy. During While I was getting graduating, Jackson was graduating at the same time. When Jackson's graduation finished, they announced in his school that they were looking for a director.
Mhm.
Auntie Kita and Uncle Wendell told me that they looked at each other and were like, we know who. And they went and spoke to them and told them about me. So Saturday I graduated. Sunday, I got the phone call from Auntie Kita. Hey, they're looking for a director. I was like, oh my goodness. Like, I just couldn't take the excitement, the nervousness, everything. It was like a bottle of emotions. I was like, oh my God, okay, this is
Mhm.
happening, like fast, this is happening. And I was
Yeah.
just, I remember I felt a little bummed out that they weren't able to make it, but I was like, God, you
He
worked
needed
this
them to
out.
be in the room. Yeah.
Yeah, God was like, no,
Mm.
I need them here because I need them to relay this message to
Yeah, on
you.
your behalf. Come on.
Yes. And
Mhm.
I was just like, my mind was blown. And I was there thinking about, I remember hanging up the phone. I was just crying. Like I was just so excited. I was scared, nervous, all of the above, all of the above. And I gave my 2 weeks to the job where I was at. They were
Mhm.
sad and everything, but it's something that I always told them also was, I always told them this when I was in Little Blessings. I was like, I'm only here temporarily. And my director would tell me, what do you mean by that? I was like, well, I'm not going to be here forever. I have my own dreams. I have my own aspirations. I know God don't want me here forever. I'm here for the time that I am needed here. So I'm only here temporarily until he wants me to move.
Yeah.
So that time that I came up to her office, and I told her, I was like, hey, I told her, I'm sorry, I have to plug in my laptop. But that time I had told her, I was like, listen, I told you I'm only here temporarily until God needed me to be moved. And that's happening now. And she looked at me and she was sad, but she told me, she was like, you always told me this. You always told me that, you were going to be your own director one day, and I didn't think it was going to be this soon because we had all these plans going on together, because it's true, me and her, we were planning different events at the school, we were planning this and that. But another thing is that God doesn't have a schedule, you know. God doesn't,
Nope.
he don't want us to make a plan, because God's like, no, your plan is not my plan,
Mhm.
Like when I need you to up and go, if I need you to jump, I need you to jump. If I need you to run, I need you to run. I need you to be
Yep.
prepared for when I tell
Mhm.
you to do something,
Yeah.
to just do it.
Mhm.
I don't want you to have to run back into your house like, wait, I forgot my phone. No,
Yeah. We
So
want you to be prepared.
yeah, that's it. He was like, I just want you to be there with the clothes on your back, and that's it.
Mhm.
So I ended up told her that I was leaving. And then I ended up going into my new position as a director. And again, it's crazy how I always put in my mind, like, God, because I wasn't just doing it because, hey, you know what? Directors get paid good money, or being a childcare owner makes good money and things like that. I just wanted to do it because I wanted to be around kids. I just wanted to go ahead and change the life of kids, because I knew me growing up wasn't a good one. And seeing the kids around me in my neighborhood, any place, or just seeing how kids were being brought up, I didn't agree with that. So I
Mhm.
wanted to be that person that when kids get older, they're like, oh, I remember Miss Karen, or I remember being here, like, wow, this, just having that sweet aroma, like, of memories, I guess. I guess that's a good
Mhm.
way for me to say it. And
Yeah.
so yeah, so I ended up being the director there. Um, and it's another thing, again, God works in mysterious ways, to the point that it's not even mysterious anymore. You should just be like, hey, God works. That's it.
Yep. Yep.
And yeah, it's crazy because, whew, so me and LJ were also in the midst of buying our own home. And our debt to income ratio was very high. And they were like, listen, we're not able to go ahead and get you guys approved for this amount, only this amount. And we're like, well, we have a growing family. We need this amount, like, in order for us to be able to get what we need. Not even what we
Mhm.
want, just what we need for our family. We got 3 kids, it's
Mhm.
us, we need something spacious. And I remember the loan officer saying, "No, we can't give you that amount." And I was like, "Well, I just got a new position in the job field, same job field. I'm just at a higher position, and this is going to be my pay." She was like,
Mhm.
"What? Send that letter over to me right now." I sent it over to her. She literally sent me over the approval letter within like 2 days with the amount that we needed to get the
Mm.
house.
Wow.
Now, yeah, now another thing too is that me and LJ have been under contract for what, 2, 3 houses out here in Deltona. God made it that none of those houses went through because he knew that my new job was going to be in Winter Garden. He knew that our house was going to be minutes away from the church because that's something that we always prayed for. We was always
Mhm.
praying for, like, God, just get us closer to our church family. Like, we just want to be closer to church. We don't care about nothing else. We just want a home that's close to church, close to our family, That's what we want.
Mhm.
And so God was working. Like, God was literally working throughout the whole time. So none of the houses in Deltona was falling through, and we were starting to get antsy. We were like, all right, so what's going on? Now I got this position. Now I don't know if I want something in Deltona. So one day, recently, I would say like a month ago, there was this night where I couldn't sleep. Like, I felt like I was having chest pains and everything. And I was like, you know what? Let me go ahead and just start looking up houses. I'm like, hey, it'll get my mind off of it. I don't know if I was having a panic attack, anxiety, whatever it was. I was going through something. And I was like, you know what? Let me just get my mind off and just look for houses. And it was midnight. And I remember the first house that I came across, the same square footage, 4 bedrooms, at the price range we needed it, close to the church, literally was posted an hour prior to me looking for the house at midnight. So at 11, it was posted. Midnight, I saw it. I screenshotted it and I sent it to Auntie Kita, and I was like, I hope she don't get mad at me because it's so late and I'm texting her, but she needs to see this in the morning and I don't want to forget about it. So she quickly texted me the next morning and she was like, "Hey, um, we can go. Do you guys have time to see this house today?" I was like, "Of course I do. Right after work we could go." She was like, "All right." So I remember she texted me back. She was like, "Unfortunately, guys, we can't see the house today. We have to let it happen for the weekend because they said they need to clean it up and stuff like that." I was like, "All right, we'll wait for the weekend." Girl, not even 5 minutes passed by. Auntie Kita texts me back with a quickness. "They said yes!" With exclamation points. "They said yes. We could see it today. They're cleaning it right now." I was like, "Bet, no problem. We're going." We went. We saw the house. Perfect. Perfect. 4 bedrooms, 1,900 plus square feet, 2 living rooms, 2 bathrooms, backyard, front yard, everything right next to the lake, 10 minutes from the church, 25 minutes from my job, everything at the price that we needed it to be at, everything. And what makes it even
Wow.
better is the fact that the sellers, they wanted to get rid of it quick. And we were the first people to see the house, first people to come see the house, first offer.
Mhm.
And they already had, what, 6+ people lined up to see it on the weekend. And we were able to see it that same day. So
Wow.
now, if this hurricane doesn't, change our schedule, um, we will be closing on our house this Friday, September 1st. Like,
Wow, good.
officially.
That's so
Yes,
good.
yes, officially this Friday.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So, out of everything, out of me just taking that leap of faith of moving out here to Florida, not only did I meet my amazing husband, okay, because I just thought that's it. I was gonna be that crazy auntie that just travels and stuff, and it wasn't in the books for me anymore to find a man. I was able to not only find a man, get him to marry me willingly. I didn't have to force him. Okay, he wanted to marry me. Okay, and what made it even better is the fact that he made sure that my kids loved him before I loved him. And that's something he always told me. He was like, I need to make sure that they like me before you like me. Like, because I have to be their father figure. And that's something he always told
Mhm.
me. And I remember him coming to the house. He would always tell them hi first. And I'll be like, I'm right here. I opened the door. But I was able to meet an amazing husband. I was able to go through all these experiences just to be prepared for what God needed from me
Mhm.
in order for me to be where I am. Like now I'm a director in a preschool that is going to expand from 50 students to 300 students within the next few months. Um, Also, we are first time home buyers. That's perfect. Um, and another testimony inside all these testimonies too is that when I met my husband, after I had DJ, well, after I had DJ, doctors had told me that I wasn't able to have any more kids and all this other stuff, what they usually say and stuff like that. Told me I wasn't able to have any more kids until I met LJ and Dallas came out. So that was my little
Wow.
blessing baby, and stuff.
Wow.
So yeah, I thought I was gonna, like I said, I thought I was gonna be the crazy auntie that just goes, travels. My kids were just gonna be my only two, and that's it. Nope, God had a whole bigger world out there for me. I was blessed with the family that
Mhm.
my husband has because now they're my family. I was blessed with my church family. I was blessed with every breath I take every day is a blessing, especially
Yeah.
because every breath means more. It means that I have another purpose today. And I'm just so grateful.
Wow. Look, I don't even know what to say. That's just like, wow. I'm over here just like, look, I'm trying to hold back tears. Like you're look, your life is literally marked by speed, the restoration of God and how he will take you from something that something that's not favorable and then transform you into something beautiful. Like, wow. Speechless. Like wow. Just I didn't even expect all of this. Look,
Yes,
I'm thinking
girl.
it's just about to be, what I knew, but this is just wow, mind blowing. This has inspired me, so I know for a fact that the people that God will send to listen to this, it will definitely inspire them, and it's gonna encourage so many people to take the leap. Cause
Yeah.
wow,
Oh yeah.
wow.
And there's been a lot
Mhm.
of leaps I had to do.
Mhm.
And it was always that it's like ugh, it's like when I mean, I never been on the edge of the cliff because I'm terrified of heights. But but it's like when you're like, do I jump? Do I jump? Like,
That was me when I went
but it's
skydiving. Look.
no. Me and no. And it's so crazy because I'm terrified of heights, but I love being on airplanes. I could be on airplanes all day, flying around like nothing.
Me too.
But mm, but yeah, I've had a lot of
Yeah.
leaps that I
But
needed to go through.
with each leap that you took, your faith just grew like stronger and stronger and stronger. And because God, you showed God that he could use you, and you showed God that, Lord, even though I don't know what, this is going to look like, but I'm going to go because you called me to go and you told me to go. He knew that he could trust you. And that's why he keeps blessing you with more and more. Because when you show God that,
Yeah.
God, you can trust me, he will open that door up, and he's going to rain down some blessings on your life that you did not see coming, because he desires to give you exceedingly abundantly above all that you could ever ask or think of. He desires to blow your mind if you trust
Yeah.
him. So
Yeah.
this was awesome. Like, I'm over here full. Okay. I am full. Yes.
Awesome.
Yes. Okay, look, I literally, I don't know, do you have any closing remarks for people who are hesitant on taking this leap of faith?
Um, well, if you're hesitant, don't be ashamed. Like it's natural. It's natural for us to go ahead and like think twice. But the thing is that, do you trust God enough to hold his hand along the way? It's almost
Oh.
like when we're kids and we're holding our parents' hand, because we trust them. We know they're there. They give us that comfort. We will go
Mhm.
wherever our mom and dads go because we're holding their hand. They give us that. Now,
Mhm.
when it comes to God, even if you're scared, you have to hold on to God's hand and find that
Mhm.
comfort that God will be walking with you. It's almost like the
Mhm.
footprints in the sand, like,
Yeah.
God, where were you? Well, at that time there was two footprints. Now you see one, and reason why is because those were my footprints because I was carrying you while you had fallen.
Mm.
So it's like
Come on.
God, yeah, God is always there for you, no matter what. It doesn't. You just have to pray about it and just put all of your worries, fears. And it's crazy because God created us, so God knows all the fears we have. He knows
Mhm.
that, listen, I don't know how I'm gonna pay rent tomorrow. He knows that, you know, but it's all a part of the plan. And you always have to remember that everything is part of the plan. God isn't going to go
Mhm.
ahead and forsake us. He's not going to go ahead and leave us stranded like, oh, well, they're going to be homeless. It's okay. Let me go to this next family that needs more help. No, like I mentioned earlier, every piece is working together. So while he's working with
Yep.
us, he's probably working on somebody else's heart at the same time to help
Mhm.
us in the situation we
Yep.
are in.
Mhm.
And it's, you know, people you just have to just stay strong, stay firm on what you believe in and stuff. And don't let fear hinder you from your blessing because that's the last thing
Mhm.
you want. The last thing you want is to go ahead and think like, wow, what if I would have did this? I would have been here in life right now. Well, you
Yep.
would never know because you never did that.
Yep.
And one thing, I don't know if everyone would like to do this, but one thing that I like to do when I'm stressed out, have a rough day or whatever, I love fairs. So whenever there's a fair, right, and I'm having a rough day and I know there's a fair around or I'll go look for one, I'll go ahead and go on whatever ride that's just fast and crazy that makes me want to scream my lungs out. And
Mm.
no, I kid you not, when I scream just out of either fear or excitement, whatever, I'm screaming, but it also relieves that pressure in my chest that I have. And I feel like after I get off, I'm able to conquer the world,
Yeah.
literally.
That's
And
good.
like I said, it's something you could try. And another thing that we were told to do, well, back in New York, we were able to go on rooftops. One thing they used to tell us is, hey, just scream. And that's it. And all
Look,
that
just get it
pressure
out,
that you
you
have,
know?
yeah, just get it out. And I promise you, you're going to feel like you just reset yourself, you
Mhm.
know? And yeah,
Yep. Look, or you just go inside your car and just scream. Okay?
yeah,
But then also try to just cast all of your cares and anxiety unto the Lord and place it in his hands because like you said, like God created us. He already knows
mhm,
exactly what we're going to face and when we are going to face that thing. So he already has the plans while we over here scared like God, how is this going to happen? He's like, I know how this is going to happen. Just
yeah,
trust me. Really, it's
yeah,
like just trust God and know that where he is taking you is not to harm you or to hurt you, but it's to give you, listen to her testimony, it's to give you a whole better future than what you could have thought of for yourself. His plan is
yeah,
always greater than our plans. So we just have to continue to trust in the Lord and know that he is not here to harm us, but he's here to prosper us and give us the expected end that he said, you know.
yeah. And another
So
thing too, one more thing, and it's like one thing that I've also learned is when you're feeling a type of way about anything that you may be going through and you're crying, make sure you cry. Don't hold it in. Cry, cry, cry. Even if you have an ugly cry, you have boogies coming, everything. Cry as hard as you can, but make sure that when you're finished crying, you never cry about that situation again. That's another thing that I've learned to do and stuff, because it's like, no, if you're
Mhm.
crying about it again, that means you're still broken about that. No, just make sure that you
Mhm.
cry about it, get all that sadness, anger out, and then that's it. You pick your pieces up and
Mhm.
move forward because God got you. So
Yep.
yep.
Yep. Well, this was so good. Thank you for coming on.
No problem. The mosquitoes bit me.
I I'm so excited for everybody to watch this episode, and I hope this stirs up your faith to take that leap, because there is so much that God has in store for you, but you will never know what he has in store if you never take the leap. And so I hope Karen's testimony has inspired you to just jump and go and do what God has called for you to do and watch him blow your mind. I'm happy that y'all can join us. Um this was episode 6, y'all. I'm super excited, and have a great rest of your night, and remember to take the leap of faith, because God is waiting on you to transform your life. Y'all have a great night.
Amen. Have a good one.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching. I pray that this has blessed you. Like, comment, and subscribe, and share. Have a great day.